Hi there, my name's Vince and welcome to another Trying to Fix video. In this video we're going to try to fix up this original Xbox here. Look at the size of the Duke. So I bought it on eBay for £20 as faulty and it was down as flashing red light. When I've tested it, I got this back in November last year, when I've tested it, it's flashing green and red, or green and orange. It's a bit hard to see. As far as I know, green and orange is a display problem and it's certainly not displaying. So let me show you what happens when I turn it on here. You will see we have a green light, it goes off, flashing green light, goes off, and then it will go to green and orange. And yet nothing's happening up here, and it's definitely not the display cable, because I tried it on this Xbox here, which is a working one, and the display cable works just fine. I'll show you that just in case there's anybody that doubts it. So let's turn this one off. Alright, watch this. So turn it on here. To begin with, it doesn't like boot loop itself. Yeah, it just works, yeah? So you can see it there. Now watch this. When I unplug it from here, the back here, you will see the lights. There you go. Ah, so that is orange and green. It is different. So the one that I've got is actually doing a red and green. Right, okay, well that's useful to know. So let's take it over to the blue mat and see what's happening with this one. What I'm wondering is it something to do with the clock capacitor that's now leaked, and it might have damaged some traces, which is going to feed. Well, it's not the AV anymore, is it? I need to find out what red and green actually means. But anyway, let's take it apart and see what's happening with it. Okay, so looking on Google about red and green flashing lights, it means it's a problem, but it can be anything. Hardware related, it can be a problem with the EEPROM. It can be a problem if somebody tries to soft mod it and it goes wrong. So it looks like it's one of those error codes that basically just means it's not functioning properly. Good news is, check it out. It doesn't look like this has been apart, because there should be a screw underneath here and a screw underneath here as well. So that's good news. So let me get this apart, and then let's get down to the board. Let's first of all look at the clock capacitor and see what the damage is around there. And these are Torx 20 bits. Lovely and clean, really is immaculate. Right, and there's a load more Torx bits around the place in there, T10. Right, that's the disk drive and the hard drive out. And it is very dusty in here. So I'm just going to take it outside and I'm going to use the data vac to get rid of all this dust. Okay, so I've given it a good blowout, and I've seen something that doesn't look right. So have a look now at this whole area and see if you can see something that looks different than anywhere else. I'll start to zoom in a few seconds. I just want to give you the opportunity if your eyes can spot it or not. Might be hard to see under this light. Let me just tilt it up like here. Now, does it become a bit more obvious? Let me zoom in a bit. Now is it more obvious? Can you see discoloration around here? And it goes all the way up to here and all the way. Let's see how far it goes. Well, I can still see it to here, and I can see it all the way to here. Can you see the difference between in here and here? So we've got a massive section here, haven't we? which is different than the rest. And that is exactly where the clock capacitor is, because the clock capacitor is this one here, which is 1 farad, not microfarad. So it's kind of like a super capacitor, a bit like a battery. And I'm presuming it must have leaked because we have a big patch around here. So I'm wondering if that's what the problem is. So I think we need to get the board out and we need to have a close look to see what sort of damage it's caused. I mean, I can't see any corrosion, but I can definitely see like a discoloration. If you look at that, you can see it on my finger. So if I was to wipe here with a clean finger, you can see nothing. But now if I wipe here, you can see there. And look here, yeah, you can see now that I've moved that dirt around the place, so the dust has stuck to it. So there's something definitely not right down in that corner. So I can see a load more Torx bit all around the place. So let's just undo it all and get the board out. Well, we are free. Obviously you've got to be very careful. If you were to put 240 volts into here, then this is going to be live, this area here, and it can kill you. Now, let's have a look on the other side here. Right, so on the other side, it doesn't really appear to have gone through. The weird thing is, it's not really corrosion, it's just kind of like a sticky patch. But maybe it's causing some weird resistance because it's going to be corrosive, and maybe it is causing weird resistance between the different components. So I think let's give it a clean with some isopropyl alcohol. It could be as simple as that. It may just need a clean. That's what I'm using, and this is 99.9%, so it's nice and safe to use. Whoops, spit a bit around that. See, it might not necessarily be that clock capacitor, maybe something has leaked on this side of the board here, but I bet it is that. Seems a bit of a coincidence. Well, I can't see anything. It all looks just fine. So let's remove that clock capacitor. Let's just make sure that there's no short on it. No, it's in the thousands of ohms, I'm sure that's fine. Yeah. I think we'll remove the clock capacitor and I think we'll try it again. I'm wondering whether it was just that on the board that was causing some sort of weird resistance between the different transistors and stuff. Well, I just don't know if that's leaked or not. I mean, it seems to be emanating from that area, but look at the pads underneath it. Actually, it's a bit black. Yeah, I think it has leaked there. Well, this one's a big I don't know. I'm going to put it back together. I wouldn't be surprised if it works, but also I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't work either, because I haven't actually seen anything that's corrosive enough to make something not work. I'm just wondering whether it's a sort of cumulative effect where one thing onto another, onto another, onto another. So maybe different the resistance across all these transistors is enough to make it not work completely. So I'm thinking if it works, we'll just have that green and orange light, but it won't boot loop. It won't do that kind of stop-start thing. So let's plug it in. Here goes. Ready? No. Right, so what is it? Same as it was before. Right, let me put a little bit of pressure down on one of the chips. Obviously I'm keeping my hands well away from the 240 side. So what I'm going to do is just push this somewhere where it's not going to foul against anything. There's a little NVIDIA chip just down here, and the corrosion was near it. This one here. I'm just going to put pressure down on that and now turn it on, just to see if that does anything. Interesting. It didn't boot loop. And it's just doing red and orange now. Well, there we go. Unless it's just coincidence, but look, can you see now? Red and orange. So watch, turn it off. Forcing down on that chip. Can you see? No boot loop. Right, okay, let's clean under that chip better. See, the corrosion went as far as that chip, you see, so there might be, it might have affected it just under there. Right, so I'm zoomed in, you can see the state of my tweezers, and these are the balls under the chip here. Now if you have a look at that one, that's sort of nice and shiny and clean, but look, that doesn't look very nice, does it, that one there? So maybe corrosion's got under there. It might not necessarily be that the balls have lifted though. It could be that there's just corrosion sat in between the balls. Do you know what I should do here? I should get some flux and not actually reheat it, not reflow it, but just allow the flux to melt and go through, and that might actually take the corrosion with it. So I think we'll do that and then clean it with some IPA. Just put loads of flux around this area here. So just want to get it nicely bubbling. Well, I wonder would that be enough? Let's leave it at that. Okay, so I've looked up this MCPXX3, and on xboxdevwiki.net it says the MCPX is the Southbridge chip of the Xbox chipset made by NVIDIA. It contains the sound processors as well as the USB, PCI, IDE, etc. controllers. So it would make sense that if this is not working properly, it would fail to boot because it controls so many other processes. So I think I'm going to put it back together. No, just do what I did now, you know, just temporarily, no screws or anything, and see if it works without me putting pressure on this. I think I'm going to have to reflow that, and if I have to reflow that, it will probably end in tears, but what else can I do? Come on. No. Oh, I'm going to have to try and reflow it. Oh, that's going to be disastrous. Right, okay. Let's just make sure it's not a coincidence. I'll tell you what, just in case it was the case of me lifting this up, let's just see what it does now. Nah, boot looping again. Right, now let's put pressure down on this NVIDIA. Right, so pressure down. No. Right, let's put loads of pressure down on it. No. So what was going on there? Was that just, I hate intermittent faults, was that just an intermittent thing? Or have I damaged it more in doing that, you know, putting flux under there? I wonder, inadvertently, am I putting my finger somewhere else on the board which is making it work? Yeah, so it makes a different noise when it's going to work. I can hear something else spinning up. Right, now I'm going to take, because I've got my finger on the board here, so now I'm going to take my finger off the board here and just my fingers on the south bridge. No, now it's not going to work. Right, so now I'm going to put my fingers back on the board again. It's annoying because it takes a while to turn off. Right, finger back on the board. And now it's going to work. Right, so it's my finger, not the south bridge. Okay, now I'm going to turn it off again, keep my finger on it, but take my fingers off the south bridge. Yeah, it's going to work because it sounds different. Okay, now I'm going to turn it off, take my finger off there and see what it does. It might be the fact I'm just putting pressure on the board. Now take it off there. No, not going to work. Right, okay. Are we getting somewhere? So now, put the finger back on that spot and let's see if it's going to work. Right, back on that spot there. No. Ah, come on, what is going on? It wouldn't be power supply, would it, where it can't output the power, correct power all the time? Then it fails. Okay, through the beauty of editing, I can put you out your misery, but in real life this actually took me quite a while going back and forth, back and forth. The capacitor in the middle of the red circle is what allows it to boot when I put my finger across it. The pad on the right hand side you can see is ground, well you can't see but it is ground. The one on the left hand side goes to that empty pad where it says R6E5, just to the left of the red circle, and then it works its way up. Look where the trace goes to, it works its way up into the corner of that NVIDIA chip. You can just see the chip on the left hand top corner. So maybe it was putting it to ground by me putting my finger on that. It might have been kind of ever so slightly shorting across the capacitor or seen a resistance change and it would pull the chip to ground. So I wasted a lot of time on this because I kind of thought maybe that was the problem area, but I wasn't sure. So what I did is I took apart my working original Xbox and I was going across the different voltage regulators in there to see the voltage difference, if there was a voltage difference between the two Xboxes. Now there was slight differences, but we're just talking like 0.3 of a volt, so it wasn't conclusive. If anything, the faulty Xbox was reading higher than the working Xbox, so that was kind of weird. But when it comes to the power supply, it was definitely allowing voltage coming out of the power supply. I couldn't swap the power supplies over because annoyingly the connectors were different, so that wasn't an option. But in this next part of the video now, you see me do something with a hairdryer. So basically I'm wondering, because of the age of this, if it is capacitor related. So that's where we're going to pick up the video now, when I've got the hairdryer in my hands and I'm in front of the TV again, and I want to see by heating up different capacitors whether or not that will change anything. Just in case it was capacitor related, I'm going to add some heat with the hairdryer just on the capacitors, just to see if it would then possibly come to life. I'll keep turning it on and off while I'm doing this. Here we go, look at the telly. Oh my god, look at the telly. What? I had to turn it on using my finger. What is going on? So, is it capacitor related? So, it's still not turning on, I still have to use my finger, but I've got the lead in the back now. I'm thinking if this is the same as the Xbox One that I did, where on the power supply, the output capacitors had failed. And if it happens on an Xbox One, which is obviously 2 generations newer than this, then it could be believable that this power supply is failing on the output, because on the Xbox One, it would sometimes work for an hour before it would cut out from memory, or I think when I was trying to update it, it would go so far. But then when you start to play a game or something, it would then just turn itself off. So I'm now thinking it's these output capacitors just here. Let's add a little bit of heat just here. Right, let's see if that's done anything. Finger here. No. Right, let's add some more heat. There we go. So, now, maybe that heat's spreading throughout the board and doing something else. Maybe it's not the capacitors. Maybe it could be these kind of switching MOSFETs and stuff along here. But I'm thinking it's going to be the output capacitors. Right, let's see if it's going to work now without the heat, because it should be still built into it. Yeah. Right, let's see if I can swap out those capacitors. Okay, so next day now, and I'm going to pull this power supply out and have a look at these capacitors. I'm going to take care, because even though it's the next day, it's possible that there's still charge in that big cap there. But I have turned it on and off here, you know, with nothing plugged in to try and drain it. Thing is, even if I get the power supply sorted, we've still got this problem over here, haven't we? I mean, once it's together, I can't be ramming my finger in, unless I bring 2 wires out, somehow attach it to here, and then, you know, you conductive paint, and then when you go to press it, it will do the same thing, but that's not ideal. I think I'm probably going to have to reflow that chip. That's what I think it must be. Must be something to do with that. It's not, you know, by me doing that, I'm sort of putting it low or something. Weird, isn't it? Now here we go, so I'm not touching that, just the wires. Let's have a measure of these big caps. So the massive capacitor is here. So let's see if there's anything left in it. No, there's not. And the other caps are here, but these are going to be the lower voltage side, I think. Let's just check. No, I think that is going to be okay to work on. So I'm just going to touch it this way, just in case. I could have done a sound effects. Right, okay, that's fine to work on. Now, so I'm thinking it's these caps here that have gone. So this is 1000 microfarad, 16 volts, 2200 microfarad, 10 volt. That looks like it's probably going to be the same. Another 10 volt one, I can't see those two. So I think I'm going to have to swap them out. I don't know if I've got caps like them. Let me check. Right, so yes, I have got 1000 microfarad at 25 volts. So I could, well, I'm only going to be able to swap that one. I'm not going to be able to swap these three because they're 2200. I think what I'm going to do is, I think I'm going to borrow them from, because I can always order them up. Those sort of caps are not going to be expensive. Yeah, let's pop them out of circuit. So I'm going to take them from another power supply, and then what I can do is, if I'm successful, I can order them up and then I can just swap them over. This video is already probably dragging massively, so all I'm going to do is take the caps out. I will show you the values, and then I'm going to solder them back in. You don't need to see that. I'm just going to use my desolder gun. I'll just fast forward through it all. Okay, it's just to recap what's happening here in case the video might be quite confusing. So I can't simply swap over the power supplies because the actual connector on the motherboard is different than my working Xbox. They have different connections because there's probably a few years in the difference of age between them. So I'm taking out the good caps from my working Xbox and I'm going to put them into the faulty eBay Xbox. I'm also going to use the faulty caps in my good one just to see what happens, to see if the fault will follow the caps. I always like doing that because then you've definitely proved it. If the fault follows the caps, 100% we know the caps are at fault. So that's all I'm doing here is unsoldering the 3 big caps and swapping them over. The smaller 1000 microfarad cap, I've actually got one of them, so I'm just putting in a new one of them into the faulty eBay board. Now the caps are 10, the big 3 caps, the suspected faulty ones, are 10 volt, 2200 microfarads. So obviously if this is successful, I'll order them up. Caps are not expensive, it's just that I haven't got any of those to put in now. Hence the reason I'm swapping them over. It'd be nice to do this because then it saves me buying a whole new power supply if the only components that are faulty are the capacitors. So that's what I'm doing here now, and next time you see this, they will be in front of the telly again, and we can see if the faulty board is now working and whether the good original working board is now faulty, which would be nice. Okay, so this is the faulty one, this is the good one, but remember now the good one has suspected faulty capacitors in. Right, let's turn it on. Oh my god, it's worked without even me touching that thing. Wow. Okay, I wasn't expecting that, how weird. Amazing. Right, let's turn it off and let's see if it starts up again. Right, so that's now off. Green light, yeah, that can't be a coincidence. So it was the output capacitors. Amazing. Right, okay, let's see now on this one, is there a kind of tolerance where this board doesn't need quite as much power? Let's see if this board here is going to work. So turn this one off. Result, just what, 4 capacitors and sorted. Even though those capacitors were testing okay. Let's see if this one, my original working one, is going to work or whether it's going to display the same faults. Nah, it's going to work. So it must be just that maybe this board here requires a bit more power for whatever reason. How bizarre. Right, let's get everything put back and let's see if I can get a game working. Okay, I've just bought this item here and they are Panasonic 2200 microfarad 10 volts, so the same as what came out, and they're low ESR and they're 105 degree. £3.89 for 5 of them. I'm quite happy to pay that to get my one up and running, and hopefully Panasonic, they should last a good amount of time. Okay, great news, they're both back together, and check it out, my original one that was working is now doing the red and green flashing lights. So it did turn on, it turned on the telly, but when I put a game in there, it then tried to spin up and then went off and basically boot looped itself. So 100%, no arguments, that power supply, the capacitors coming out of it are faulty, which is fantastic, because at least I know now 100%. There you go, you see, not doing it. Exactly the same symptoms as the one that I got from eBay. Right, okay, let's move on to this one here, which has caused me so much pain. Now, if you do these all the time, you would have just swapped out the power supply to begin with, and then it would have been an easy fix. It's just that I was concentrating all my efforts around that clock capacitor because of the corrosion. In this instance here, that corrosion didn't cause any problems. Because you've seen that there was actually no damage on those traces, I just thought maybe it was mucking around with resistances and stuff, where, for example, under the chip. But with the knowledge of knowing what the fault is now, it had nothing to do with that. If I had just done those capacitors at the very beginning, it would have worked. But it's still good that that corrosion has been cleaned up. Right, so let's turn it on. And you can see it now coming up on the telly. Let's see if the game is going to work. Such a great intro. Right, let's see if the eject's going to work. And we'll put, this is the game I think that I got from eBay with it. Excellent, it comes out. Now obviously the clock capacitor's no longer in it, so you're going to have to enter in the the date, the time, each time you do it. Right, it looks like it's loading up. I can hear it. So isn't that weird about putting my finger on there, that it was messing up with that? So obviously it needs a certain amount of voltage to go through certain chips in order to, you know, I was mimicking, I suppose, a pulling down off a pin or something by putting my finger on it. Well, there we go. So what else could be done to this one here? Let me just lower it down in case we have some sort of copyright. Thermal paste could be changed over, and also a clock capacitor could be put in there. So yeah, that's it. So it looks like the 240 volts was coming in. It was getting converted down fine to DC, lower DC voltage, but I think there wasn't enough power there to give a stable, clean signal. So although the capacitors were testing okay, they're clearly not okay, because when we've changed them over, we now have the fault on the faults followed the capacitors. So exactly the same as the Xbox One that I did. So kind of interesting, and I wonder whether the same thing happens on Xbox 360s as well. I would be surprised if it didn't. So yeah, there it is. You can see it's working fine up there. So that is it for this video. If you enjoyed it, give it a big thumbs up. Apologies, it's going to be all over the place. I'm dreading editing this one because I think I'm just going to have to cut so much out of it with voiceovers, because there were so many things going back and forth. I think it's going to be a hard video to watch, but at least the end conclusion is that probably quite a lot of the problems here, where you have the boot on, boot off, boot on, boot off, boot on, boot off, and then the green and red flashing lights, is probably to do with output capacitors. So yeah, don't even need to change the whole power supply, just those 4 capacitors. So yeah, thanks so much for watching, and I will hopefully see you all very soon. Take care, everyone.